So we talked about reading, and now we're going to go one step further, and we're going to apply the reading techniques to learn vocabulary and grammar to language islands. What are language islands? It's not as exotic as it sounds. A language island is basically a group of sentences, a cluster of sentences on a specific topic that you memorize so that you can talk on that specific topic. And the beauty of this technique is that you can have an island, another island, another island, and you can go island hopping in conversation. So let's say that I'm talking in a foreign language, whatever, Polish, and they ask me what I do for a living. So I've got my 5 to 10 sentences memorized about I'm a language coach, I help businesses and nomads and expats and so on learn foreign languages quickly, blah blah blah. That's an island. And then they're like, oh well, how do you do that? And I'm like, I hop to the next island and I've got 5 to 10 sentences about the method. Natural language learning does this and that, blah blah blah. And if I'm running out of things to say, it's not related, but I've got a language I don't know where I'm from. So then I start talking about, yeah, I come from San Sebastian in the Basque Country, the border between France and Spain, so on and so forth. And from that they're like, I've never heard of that. And then some of the guy says, don't you have a language that's slightly different from Spanish? And then I jump to, yeah, my native language is Basque, and I've got 5 to 10 sentences about how different it is, and it's the oldest language in Europe, and blah blah blah. So, and you can expand this infinitely. So you have 5 to 10 sentences on all the topics you talk about, you're likely to talk about, and you have them prepared, so you can just keep jumping from island to island and keep talking endlessly in the language, even if you're not that fluent yet, right? You won't sound scripted, I promise, because then you can use them naturally. So the idea is how to do them. First, you need a list of topics. All the topics that are relevant to you. In my case, it would be traveling, all the places I've lived in, and be as specific as possible. So, yeah, I'm traveling a lot, blah, 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 but I've got one about traveling, I've got one about Germany, I used to live there, I've got one about southern Germany, I used to live there, I've got one about Berlin, one about Vienna in Austria, and Austria in general, I've got one about Romania. All the places I've been, I've got a language island. Hobbies, one island about each and every hobby. I've got one about boxing, I've got one about reading, about history I also like, the beach, my city, surfing. You can get very creative. So what you should do is write, let's take language learning. So let's say I'm talking about my system. So yeah, NLL is blah blah blah. It's a language system that they developed, so on and so forth. The difference with a traditional language teaching methods is that this and that, and should be another sentence. It's really effective because another one, and we make 5 to 10 of this. Let's say I'm learning Polish. I am in fact learning Polish. But anyway, take all of this, put them on Google Translate, and no matter what people say, Google Translate is accurate. It's relatively accurate, 90-something percent, 99%. So put them in Google Translate, get the sentences in Polish, and the more common the language, the more accurate Google Translate is going to be. It's going to be more accurate for Spanish than for Polish, and less accurate for Basque because it's a very small language, but even for Basque, it's relatively accurate. So you write your sentences, you translate them in Google Translate, write them down, and you apply the reading. Yeah, now you've got bilingual text, because you've got your sentences that you yourself wrote, and you've got the sentences in the language that you're learning, the same sentences, but those sentences, you created them as well, so you already know the meaning. So you read it once, try to figure out what it means. Again, you use your own sentences as help, and then you read them aloud. You should be listening all the time so you know the pronunciation, more or less. The more you practice, the better you get at that. But you read them aloud, record yourself, listen to it again and again with the other listening materials. Yeah? And if we apply the translating method to this, so the idea would be to read them once a day, all your islands. And in a month you'll be able to, and also if you record yourself or you listen to yourself every day as well, you remember all of them. So that's hundreds of sentences, useful sentences, that you can use in specific situations. And you don't have to say the whole island in order. You can simply say a couple of the sentences, use what you need every time. So just adapt it to the situation, right? Be somewhat smart in conversation, but you always have that as a backup. And if you also do translation technique that I will later explain with them, yeah, you'll learn them very, very quickly. If you read them daily, you translate them, and you listen to them all the time, in a month you'll be able to say hundreds of sentences. Hundreds of relevant, useful sentences that you will use in daily life. So then your ability to speak and to have conversations will vastly improve in a few weeks. Okay, let's keep going.